Hello, my friend, and welcome to my first monthly plan with me. I'm going to go ahead and do these every month, and if ever you are interested in seeing more about my Notion setup or the templates that I'm using, drop a comment below and let me know. But the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do whenever I do my monthly review and planning is I open the previous month, and I start by checking in with my goals for that previous month. You'll see on the screen that I go through and I cross out the goals that perhaps were no longer relevant. Maybe something changed over the course of the month. I check off the ones that I completed, and for the ones that I didn't complete, I make some sort of note, oftentimes including a why I didn't complete them. The next thing I go ahead and do is I'm going to check into my quarterly review and goal planner. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate my tabs so that I can toggle back and forth between the quarterly review and the monthly review. Now, as I start to do this, you might notice on the screen, I make a little bit of a face. The reason why I made that face is I had previously been playing around with and testing out whether or not ClickUp was a good option for me. I didn't like it. I ultimately ended up coming back to Notion, but I realized that I did my entire quarterly review inside of ClickUp. So this review is a little bit longer because of the fact that I spent a good chunk of time copying my quarterly review and goals from ClickUp back into Notion. Since even though I might have tried to experiment with something else, I always come back to Notion. You get a little bit of a glimpse into my quarterly review and quarterly goal setting process. As I go about doing this, I check into different parts of my life. I ask myself varying questions from those parts of my life, and I use that information to help me set whatever goals I'm going to be focusing on for that particular quarter. I also will go in and ask myself what worked and didn't work, my successes and struggles, my gratitudes, my lessons learned, and then I go about setting my goals. These goals are the ones that I'm going to be copying over into my monthly review planner so that I can check into how I'm doing in moving toward these particular goals. So now that I've got them all copied over, I can start to check in with myself. And one of the first things I check in with about my month is I check in about my memories of the month. What were some things that happened that month that I enjoyed? And to do this, I usually have to jump back and forth between my calendar, which is why my face is appearing and reappearing on the screen. I also look at my successes of the month. And sometimes to do this, I have to jump back to my previous goals and to my weekly reviews. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to check into my monthly goals and how those went. And to do this, I'm going to go ahead and temporarily copy my monthly goals down so I can see them a little bit more easily. When I do this, I basically check into each goal individually, as you can kind of see on the screen, and I ask myself how'd it go? How did I do moving toward this goal? Is there anything that went well or didn't go well? So on and so forth. Also, side note, you might also see as I go through this that I'm periodically popping off the screen to eat some sushi. I usually turn my reviews into a little bit of an event for myself, sometimes having wine or a fun dinner, just so I can make it a little bit more enjoyable for myself. Once I check in on my goals, I scan back through my weekly reviews. You can see each week I ask myself what worked, what didn't work, and what can I improve. Each month, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for patterns. Were there any recurring themes in terms of what worked and what didn't work that I can carry forward into future months? This month in particular, it was things like spending more personal time, getting out and doing other outdoorsy things other than walking. And then in terms of things that didn't work, I comment on things like my fact that I've not been journaling, the fact that I've been struggling with drinking my water in a timely fashion. So from there, I choose specific tasks that I'm going to focus on improving over the course of the next month. This month in particular, it was planning how I'm going to carry forward the good things from 75 Hard that I've learned and spend more time with friends, as well as continue working on my water drinking. The last thing I do is I do a values check-in. I have 5 different core values, and each month I basically check in with myself and say, how well am I living according to this value? How well is this value showing up in my life? I give myself a score and I explain why I gave myself that score. Now you'll see as I finish off this process that sometimes the initial score I gave myself isn't the final score I give myself, because in the process of doing my reflection and explaining why, I perhaps realized that I was doing a bit better than I thought I was. That was the case with my prosperity value and with my freedom value. I went back in and I changed it. So this is the last thing I do in my reflection on the previous month. Then I jump to the future month, or as I'm recording this, the current month. Now, in this particular situation, I was testing out a slightly different layout, one that had stats, week at a glance, a weekly cleanup, so on and so forth. And what I'm doing right here is kind of sussing out, how do I like these additions? And after scanning through it, I kind of realized I didn't really need the week at a glance, I didn't like the monthly stats, and I preferred my top 3 goals being laid out the way they were before. Last but not least, I jump into my dashboard. And here really what I'm doing is I'm ensuring that the main events I have indicated on my dashboard match with the core main events that are happening in that particular month. And as I was doing this, I realized I was missing one. I was missing when my boot camp started for the launch of my memberships. So I went ahead and added that in. Now at the time, I thought I was done with my review, but come to realize I actually missed one thing. So I recorded a little add-on so that I could show you that one final thing. This one final task is checking back into that quarterly review sheet and pulling the tasks and sub-goals from month 3. Month 3 is September in our current quarter. So these are the sub-goals and subtasks relevant to my primary goal that I'm aiming to complete in the month of September. So what I'm doing here is I am copying them into my monthly tracker so that each time I do a weekly review, I see them. So I went ahead and made a duplicate tab, opened up my monthly spread for September, and went ahead and pasted those sub-goals and subtasks below the September goal. And I went and used the paste and sync option because when I do this, any changes I make inside of that block automatically sync anywhere that block shows up in Notion. So I went ahead and I did that copy and paste for each of the different goals, updated the subtasks and subgoals as I went, and then that was it. Thank you so much for joining me in my first plan with me. If you've got any questions, comments, saw anything you'd love to see more of in my Notion setup, drop a comment below. And if you're loving these and want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. See you next time, my friend.